Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Luuk Swinkels and welcome back to How to Compose Classical Music for Dummies. This is lesson 10 and in this lesson we will talk about chord functions. We will talk about the most important chord functions. There are multiple chord functions, but we will talk about the three most important ones, and we will use this to talk about popular progressions and on cadences, but not before we will revisit last week's topic. In lesson 9 we just had actual lesson about dynamics and articulations, and these two charts are the important things to remember. Last week I went over to MuseScore to 3 different examples to let you hear what you can do as a composer or arranger with articulations and dynamics. And it might seem easy, but it is important to remember, because there really are occasions where I think a piece is done and then I'm like, oh damn, I totally forgot about dynamics. Sometimes you just forget about the simple things. And that's what we discussed in lesson 9. So right now we can finally talk about functional harmony. Functional harmony tells us how music works. As a composer, I do not use just random chords. I carefully think about where does the music go and what kind of chord functions do I need. Because chords have a function. So, first of all, it is important to remember the diatonic triads in a major key. Diatonic means in the key of. And in lesson 8, when we talked about Roman numeral analysis, I told you that 1, 4, 5 is always major, 2, 3 and 6 is always minor, and 7 is always diminished. And you have to remember this. It's really important. Well, right now we're going to start with the functions, and in this lesson we will learn the 3 most important ones, which is a tonic, a dominant, and a predominant function. And at the end of this course we will learn a 4th one, but for now just the most important 3. So let's start with a tonic function. When is a chord a tonic chord? Well, a tonic chord is the home chord. It is where music starts, and if a musical line develops, it builds tension and it wants to resolve back to a tonic chord. It is where music goes to. It is the dot at the end of a sentence, the period. And in this example, the last chord is the tonic chord. So you can really hear that the music wants to go there. So let's listen. There is tension and we want to go to that chord. Even though there is a break of like 2 seconds between the last 2 chords, your brain really wants the music to resolve to a stable chord where the tension is gone. It sounds chill, it's the end of a sentence or the end of a piece. And a chord where there is no tension, where the music wants to resolve to, is called a tonic chord. And the 1, 3 and 6 in a major scale are tonic chords. So in the key of C major, that would be C major, E minor and A minor. In this example you can hear the 1 chord, which is where music wants to resolve to the most. It just wants to go back to your 1. That is the most obvious way to resolve. We can also resolve to the 6 minor. If it's not clear during this lesson, I will clarify everything. But I will first want to go over the functions. It resolves to 6 minor. You can still hear the music is resolved, but not the most perfect way. I can also resolve to the 3 minor chord, but that sounds not really obvious. And because the 3 minor chord is a bit the black sheep from the tonic chords, I will not talk about the 3 minor chord in this lesson or in any of the lessons. So after that we have a dominant function, and the dominant chord has tension. It really wants to go somewhere. It wants to resolve to a tonic chord. Can be the 1 chord, can be the 6 chord, can even be the 3 chord if you want to. So the same example as the first one, and not the last chord, but the chord before the last one is a dominant chord. So you can really hear the tension and that it wants to resolve back to 1. This chord, and it really wants there. You can hear there is tension, the music goes to more tension and it wants to release back to a tonic function, because chords have a function relative to the tonal center. It depends, of course, in what major key you are in, or minor key. Besides a tonic and a dominant, we also have a predominant chord, and the predominant chord can be used for a lot of stuff. It can go to the dominant, predominant before dominant, and it can also go back to the tonic. In this example, it will go back to the tonic. It ends with a 4-1 progression. Again, the same melody. Instead of going to 1, you hear the 4 chord. After 4 we go to 1. But it can also just 4 as predominant to a dominant to tonic. And that are chords, because music works in certain ways. And it is important to recognize chord functions. But first, to clarify more about how the chord functions work, we will talk about cadences. And a cadence is a melodic or harmonic configuration that creates a sense of resolution, finality, or pause. And this sounds really complicated, but it's not. So the 5 chord is dominant function and wants to resolve to a tonic chord, but to be honest, the 5 chord wants to resolve back to the 1 chord if it has a chance. The 5 to 1 resolution gives us a finality, and it is so incredibly important, the 5-1 resolution, that it has its own name, the perfect cadence. 5-1 is the most important fundamental on how classical music works. Every chord wants to resolve just a 5th down. That is what chords want in our Western classical music. We can also have a phrase that does not end with a tonic function, but that ends with 5 or with the 7. It ends with a dominant function, and so it ends with a tension that wants to resolve, but it does not resolve. And because the music is not resolved, the music is not done. When the phrase ends with a 5 or the 7th chord, we call this the imperfect cadence. It is a bit like a comma. It gives us a sense of pause. You can see it as a question and you want an answer on there. And then it stops, and you really want to hear that first minor chord again, because that is where the music wants to go to. And here I am resolving it. Here we hear a perfect cadence from 5 to 1. 5, 1. So the 5 chord wants to resolve to the 1 chord, but it can also resolve to the 6 chord. There is so much tension on the dominant chord that it can resolve to just any tonic chord as long as it resolves to something, because the tension has to go somewhere. If you want to end a piece with a dominant function, you are probably really confused and still waiting to hear that final chord that finishes things up. But it can resolve to any tonic chord, and if it resolves to the 6th minor chord, we call it a deceptive cadence, because you would expect it to go back to 1, but 6 also works, and it has its own name. It sounds like this. You would think bom, 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 bom. Your brain would think it go back to 1, but it goes to the 6th minor chord, and it works as well because the tension has been released. But because it's more obvious to go back to 1, this is called a deceptive cadence. And I do not want to make things any more complicated, so I have 5 chord progressions. The first 3 are just with chords and the other 2 are with instruments and rhythm. And I would like for you to identify if they are in 4-5-1, which is a perfect cadence, if it is 4-5-6, a deceptive cadence, or if it ends with a dominant function, and so it is a imperfect cadence. So if the music does not resolve, you know it is an imperfect cadence. If it resolves the way your brain would think it would, it will be a perfect cadence, and the deceptive cadence is when it resolves to a minor chord. So this is progression number 1. We can listen to it again. Does it resolve? And if it resolves, is it to the 1 major chord or to the 6 minor? You can write this down with pen and paper. Progression number 2. And again, does this resolve? And I mean, if it does not resolve, you know it's an imperfect cadence, and if it does the music resolves to the 1 major or to the 6 minor? And the third progression? And we will listen to the third progression once more. So, do you think you have the answers? Let's see. Let's listen to the first one. The first one is a perfect cadence. The music resolves to the 1 major chord, to the place that you would expect it to go to. The second one is a imperfect cadence because it ends with a dominant chord. Bum, bum. In my brain, the music just resolves automatically back because when you end with a dominant chord, it just sounds, it's a pause, there must be something more to resolve to. The second progression was an imperfect cadence. And the third one is again a perfect cadence, 4-5-1. It resolves back to what you would expect. I have 2 more examples. These are a bit more difficult, so if you do not know these, that's not really that big of a problem, because right now I have added some instruments, some voices, I've added some rhythm to make it a bit more challenging. And again, is it a perfect cadence, deceptive cadence, or a imperfect cadence? And there are the 3 chords again. We can hear it again. These are the 3 chords. And again the 3 chords. Boom, boom, boom. This example is a imperfect. I'm sorry, this is a deceptive cadence. You hear 4, 5 to 6 minor. But to be fair, right now you hear 4 to 5. So if you had that in the middle, you hear 4, 5, that would be an imperfect cadence in between. So if you heard that, or if you even heard both, that would be bonus points. And let me know in the comment section if you did. But the correct answer would be that it is a deceptive cadence, because the music does resolve, but to a different location as you would expect. And the fifth and final progression. I mean, in my opinion, this one is the most easiest. Does the music resolve, and if so, is it to the place you would expect, or is it to the 6 minor chord? I mean, it ends with a major chord and it is resolved, so this is a perfect cadence. 4, 5, 1. And here are the answers. The first, third and fifth were all perfect cadences, the second was imperfect, and the fourth was deceptive. So this actually was the lesson already. You've learned the chord functions, tonic, dominant and predominant, and we also did some ear training on these popular progressions on the cadences. And in the next lesson we will add more stuff to this, but I want it to be understandable. So because this is a brand new topic to learn and maybe it's really difficult, I want to start easy with just 3 things, with just perfect cadence, imperfect cadence, deceptive cadence. And in the next lesson we will add 2 more progressions, 1, 6, 1 and 2, 5, 1. We will also talk about 7th chords, the major 7th, minor 7th, and about the dominant 7th chords. The popular progressions are important because at the end of this course we are going to compose ourselves and we can use the popular progressions to do so. So if you have any questions, just compose a comment, let me know, and I would love to see you in the next lesson on how to compose classical music for dummies.